So today we're going to be talking about types of marriages. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. You're chilling with a girl Patricia in Ndlovu. Thank you so much guys for the love, for the support. It really means a lot. If you're new to my channel, please click on that subscribe button, and also don't forget to follow me on socials. I am at Patricia Ndlovu _ right. So today we're going to be talking about types of marriages, and I know that a lot of people, especially the black communities, we enter into marriages without understanding and knowing why we entering in certain marriages. And I know that there's a stigma as well when it comes to religion or faith or whatnot, whereby people are advised to say no. If you are Christians, you definitely have to get married in community of property. Guys, it's not all about that. It is culturally or religiously wrong or right, depending that if probably that is what influences you or influenced your decision. But there are a whole lot of things that can influence the type of marriage that one gets into. That can be in terms of businesses. Some people want to exclude their businesses in their marriages because of, should anything happen to the business or should the business be liquidated or anything, they know that some of their assets which are registered in the other spouse's name or cars or everything are protected in a way. Because if, let's say, your business suffers and we've got cars, we've got houses, now everything gets taken away that belongs to also me, right? So we've got two types of marriage regimes in South Africa, which is in community of property and outside of community of property, right? So out of community of property, we've got like two underlying options that one can choose, which is with accrual and without accrual, right? What happens is that in community of property, I come with my estate, and obviously my spouse or my husband to be also comes with his estate. What happens is that the estate and my husband's estate, they then become one, they become joint, and it forms a part of the joint estate. And the day that the marriage dissolved, then we share, meaning we take 50-50 each from the estate, right? What happens is that you don't only acquire only assets, right? You also acquire debts and liabilities, meaning that the minute you get married in community of property, automatically the debts of my husband are now my debts, and my debts are now his debts, right? That's why normally when you take a loan, they ask you if you're married. And if you are married, obviously, or if you are Mrs. or whatever, they'll want your spouse's signature and your spouse to be there as well, because you can't be making debt without him, because obviously they're gonna affect the both of you, you know. So what happens is that if, let's say, I'm in debt and I'm owing let's say creditors money, and what happens is that my creditors can go after my husband's asset, and they can also try to claim money from him, right? So that's also things to look at when looking at the type of marriage regime that you want for you and your spouse, right? Disadvantages: the other spouse might be worth billions and the other one might not be having money, but when the marriage dissolves or comes to an end, they get 50%, of which they did not even have anything, right? So those are things as well to look at. But if you feel that to you it doesn't matter if your spouse contributed to the marriage or contribute financially or not, it doesn't matter, you don't mind sharing, then that's not a problem. But you must look at other options which are out there, right? So my personal advice, if I were to give a person advice, my personal one, it's not a legal one, it's my personal advice. I would advise people to get married out of community of property. That's called having a wisdom. Sana, you have wisdom. Like, trust me, have wisdom, because qabangela phambili, qabangela lena. But I'll come to the types of out of community of property as well, because now you've got with accrual and without accrual. Then the both of you can choose which one works for you guys, right? So marriage out of community of property without accrual means what's mine, it's mine before the marriage, what's mine, it's mine in the marriage, what's mine, it's mine after the marriage, right? Whatever debts I do, it does not affect my other half. Whatever, if the other person dies, or if, let's say, we divorce, then it has nothing to do with the other person. You go your way, I go my way. I take what I came with, you take what you came with. We're not fighting. We break up in peace, And like, what the nice thing about this is that divorces of people who got married out of community of property without accrual, they're easy, bruh. They're easy. You just take your marriage certificate and the contract and everything. You're like, we're not fighting. The problem comes when people are fighting for assets. When the other person is like, I'm contesting the marriage, and then it becomes a problem. But if the other person does not contest the marriage, girl, I'm going back to my surname very quickly. I'm not taking even time. It's not going to be a hassle. It's going to be easy. I'm not going to spend a lot of money. So you had that right. So what happens is that in marriage out of community of property without accrual, estates never join. They never joined. They will never join. And at any point, right? So debts and liabilities as well will never be joined. They will remain. I will have my debts, he will have his debts, and it will remain that way, right? What happens is that in community of property with accrual, right? With accrual. But before we get there, both in community of property without accrual and out of community of property without accrual and with accrual, you both need to sign an ANC, which is an antenuptial contract, right? An antenuptial contract which will be drafted and executed by a specialist. It's an attorney, but obviously they called a notary attorney, not just any attorney, meaning it's somebody who's an attorney and now they study again to be a notary. They have another qualification of a notary, right? What happens is that a notary will draft obviously an ANC for you guys. You will have to sign it, and the notary will have to register this document with the deeds office within 3 months of the signature, right? So what happens is that out of community of property with accrual, this is how it's done. I know it gets confusing to a lot of people, and now I'm here to teach you guys. Then my net value, the net value of my estate before I get married will be calculated, and the net value of my estate will also be calculated when we divorce. The net value of my spouse will be calculated before, and will be also calculated when the marriage dissolves, either by divorce or by death, right? So what happens is that the difference in the estate of my estate and his estate then will be set off. This is how it works. Let's say at the beginning of our marriage, before the marriage, my net value, it was 200,000, and when it's calculated at the time the marriage dissolves, it's 1 million, right? They will say 1 million minus 200,000. The difference is 800,000. Now they will go to my spouse and say, okay, at the beginning of the marriage, my spouse was having a net value of 500,000, which is 500,000. At the time of the divorce or death, my spouse has 1,000,000. When they minus the two, it will give us 500,000. Now they will take my calculations and his calculations at the time the marriage dissolves, meaning they will say 800,000 minus 500,000. What happens is that now we have 300,000, which means that we're gonna share from this 300,000, which is, it's gonna be divided by 2, meaning I'm gonna walk away with 150,000 from this share of ours, and he's gonna also walk away with 150 from our share. Now, the nice thing about with accrual system is that both parties can choose to exclude certain assets and choose also to include certain assets. That's very nice, right? Like we grow up, and let's say you grow up, you don't have a boyfriend, you're not dating, you're like, okay, I want to buy my parents a house. Just to give you an example, I want to buy my parents a house. You buy them a house, and obviously the house will be registered in your name because you bought it. It's a bond, right? 5 years down the line, you meet this guy and you're like, okay, if I get married in community of property, automatically this guy will inherit this house that I bought for my mom, right? So what happens is that you're gonna say, okay, let's get married out of community of property with accrual, right? Meaning, this house will not form part of our estate. We're excluding this house. You can also say, you know what, like I gave the example of businesses and the fact that if you married in community of property, the business might affect in terms of the debts, and if let's say the business becomes liquidated, you can say, okay, we're getting out of community of property with accrual, but your business does not form part of the marriage, meaning we're gonna share everything else, but your business, no, meaning I'm not gonna get anything from the business, and it's not also gonna affect me should anything happen to the business. That's the beauty of this, guys. You can choose, you can literally choose, right? What happens is that donations and inheritances as well cannot or is not included when calculating the estate value of the spouse, right? When it comes to accrual, meaning if let's say there's donations which were made to me through during the marriage, if I inherited something from maybe my mom, my dad, then when we calculate and dissolve the estate when it ends, when our marriage ends, then this cannot form part of the estate, of which it's a very nice thing as well to look at if I were to advise you guys, right? So customary marriage automatically, if you get married customarily, it is in community of property, unless you guys as well sign an ANC, an anti-nuptial contract, right? Customary marriage must also be registered, guys. I know a lot of you don't know this, but it must be as well registered in the Home Affairs within 3 months of the marriage, right? So this is to prove that the marriage existed, right? However, it does not mean that if the marriage was not registered at the Home Affairs, then this customary marriage, it does not exist. No, it does exist because of it's our customs. However, it will be difficult to prove that there was a marriage. However, it's still not impossible to prove that there was a marriage, right? But it is difficult, meaning for customary marriage to exist, both you must be 18 and above. There must be consent consent between the parties, meaning that you can't marry me without my consent, and a minor cannot also be married without being identified as the age that they are actually able to consent, right? But it is provable, and we know that according to our law, for a marriage to be valued as a customary marriage, it's not only lobola that has to be paid. It's a lot of things. There has to be lobola. Lobola must be paid in full. There has to be a celebration customarily. There has to be a handing over of the bride, and so forth. So it's a whole lot of things to look at. And I know that our law changes now and then daily, but I will give you an update in terms of our standing. But this is what needs to be done for a marriage to be considered a valid marriage, right? Customarily, unless it's a civil marriage, which you need to go and sign at the Home Affairs. But yeah, guys, all I can say is that if you're getting married this year, in the year 2021, all the best. However, I would advise couples to sit down, look at what will work best for their relationship, and take a decision, right, guys? It's gonna affect the both of you, and it has nothing to do with other people. If in community of property works for you, go ahead. If out of community without accrual works for you, go ahead. If with accrual works for you, go ahead. So guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Love you. Thank you so much. See you on my next upload. Love you. Mwah.